Range Rovers. To me, they are, aside from McLaren, but like I don't want to get to a level that's much higher. This is a lot
it's
higher.
Minority people buy luxury, that kind of luxury.
Yeah,
cars.
I mean, like, Range Rovers on a level where some people want to aspire to purchase a certified pre-owned, 2 or 3 year old car, Range Rover. Hey, I can afford it now. I want to give myself that luxury. It's probably one of the most unreliable cars in the like luxury segment. I mean, every car has their flaws.
Today's guest, one of the most genuine and hardworking people I know, owner of a mechanic shop here in Miami, my friend Jonathan Naranjo. Welcome to the show, brother.
It's a pleasure to be here, man. We've been talking about it for a while, and we're actually here. We made it happen.
Yeah, we missed a couple of stuff when we were getting ready for the show. We touched on a lot of stuff. You own a mechanic shop, but when I first time visited you, I was like, this looks like Jay Leno's garage. You have so many luxury vehicles. I was like, how do you, I know the people have a lot of fancy cars here in Miami, but how do you manage to fix all of them? It's just so many different, I assume, tools and ways how to fix all that stuff.
Yeah.
How do you manage to do all of that?
Learning. I call it guinea pigging, not being afraid and saying you're going to be able to do something and figuring out how to do it. Usually when you have a practice that you work on so many different vehicles, it's impossible to know like all the details of every specific brand, every failure, and we try to get in the customer's shoes because they don't really understand that part too much. They think every car, it's just a car and put the computer in and figure it out, and sometimes even the manufacturer will have issues that they can't even figure out. The dealers have recalls, all these cars come out brand new with issues sometimes. So for us, we have to pretty much get started to know where it's going to go, to know if we have the right equipment to do it, to be able to purchase the right equipment if it's required, if that job is going to be reasonable enough, or if we've seen 2 or 3 cases that we've had to deny already, and now we're looking like, okay, we have enough customers that are coming with this, we'll have to invest in a certain scanner, which we've had to do plenty of times, and for certain cars that we might only get once, maybe hopefully more. If you've got super high-end cars, bring them, but it's just not being afraid. I think that's the biggest challenge for most auto shops is like, I don't want to get started on something I'm not going to be able to fix, and we have a really good team. We have very knowledgeable guys. We have a lot of equipment, and throughout the years, guinea pigging our way through our expertise and also trainings and courses, but that's also very limited, especially on certain manufacturers where information is kept very secret and there's not a lot of training and courses or specialty classes that you can take in certain brands like McLaren, Lamborghini, Rolls-Royce, Bentley, all this stuff.
How do they expect you to fix if they're not sharing their information on their cars and vehicles and whatever they just make a car and like you figure it out later, or they just trying to make you buy a new one or get that car back to them to fix it, or what's the idea?
I think it's a mix of everything. Like I think if a car frustrates an owner enough, they're either persistent enough to fix it, or they're going to get rid of it and get something else, depending on what it's going to cost to fix it, how attached they are to it, how much they really love it, how much they want to keep it going. So I think it's a mix of everything. I think that the way certain cars are built and sorry, I lost my train of thought completely. The way certain cars like are designed, they're manufactured very similar to other vehicles, but they share different communication modules. Some cars will have what's called like a CAN communication bus. Some cars will have fiber optic communication, wireless. Certain.
So every single car is different.
It is different, and like there's information that you can get access to, but there's also like a certain inside or intel knowledge that you would have to know which car shares the same trim with another car, and which information can I dissect off of using this vehicle's wiring diagram, because this has the same engine, because this is part of a certain manufacturing class that has different brands that all fall under one
same category,
the same umbrella, the same company. Yeah.
I expect people bring in the car and you tell them a price tag of fixing a luxury car. Even if they have money, I don't think that sounds right. What's the most expensive car fix that you had to do for a luxury vehicle, for some newer car or whatever you have experience with?
I think the most expensive price tag on a repair for like a single item, because we've had cars that, they've come in with insurance claims, that engine replacements, things like that, that have priced up to a higher ticket, but it's been a lot more expense, a lot more overhead. The most expensive car was a McLaren P1, a 2015 McLaren P1. And the gentleman, Brazilian guy, super nice. He had the vehicle stored at a place that was in Wynwood, close to our original shop. And the car was left on the what they call AMPU hydraulic system. So these cars, like Lamborghini, the new C8 Corvette, Ferraris, they have a nose lift on it. McLaren actually has a body lift. So it actually has different modes that works on hydraulic fluid. That's the same fluid you use for the power steering. And when that vehicle is left in that ride height, it's compressed with hydraulic power. And even if you get in a standard 570 GT or a 600, a 675, a 720, they all have that same system. And if you left the car in that mode and you get back in it the next day, it'll actually tell you recovery mode. And it won't let you drop it or lift it for a while because it's accumulated so much pressure, it has to drain it all out and then recirculate that fluid back up, and then it can function. So what happened was the guy couldn't use the car during the pandemic, and he didn't come back to the United States. He was in Brazil at the time, and when he came for his first ride in the vehicle, he hit a pothole or something, how the Miami streets are, and he busted the seal out of the passenger front hydraulic strut. And the car was just leaking out all the fluid, the power steering gets stiff, you get all kind of warnings. And anybody that has a McLaren that knows the AMPU system or your nose lift system, there's a very high frequency whistle. It's like, and you hear it all the time. Even in a standard McLaren, you hear that high frequency whistle all the time. And if you turn, you hear consistently. And that one was extremely loud because it's running out of fluid. So his car was loud. Imagine, it's like a $1.5 million car that you've had in storage, babying. I have videos. I'll show you on my Instagram. It has 618 miles at the time that we changed.
And you, but that's
618 miles.
That's nothing. It's like
and then
most factory.
It's brand new. I mean, it's years old, but it was a brand new car. And the issue wasn't that the guy didn't want to fix it at the dealer. And this is the question that I get asked, like, why did he bring it to you? Out of all the shops he could have gone to, the guy's a multimillionaire, obviously, if he could afford a car like that. And if you even got accepted to buy that car brand new by McLaren,
you have money. It takes.
You have to have a lot of money. So this guy wasn't going to blink an eye at the collection telling him $100,000 or McLaren Fort Lauderdale or in West Palm Beach telling him, it was $100,000. He was going to fix it. The issue was he doesn't live in Miami. He lives in Brazil. He wanted to enjoy his car. I think he had a grandkid that was born during the pandemic. He wanted to, show the car to the little boy or the family, whatever. And his issue was time frame. And McLaren told him that that's a part that needs to be produced and that part takes time to build, that they didn't have a time frame, that this was going to be either 3 months or 3 years, that he would just have to leave the car and forget about it until they can replace it. That's essentially what they told him. They couldn't guarantee him a time frame. And the guy that was the manager at that storage facility knew us, would bring us vehicles every now and again for service. And he asked me, he's like, hey, do you think you can get me this stuff for this McLaren? I was like, give me the VIN number, which it was a process to get. I ended up calling all the dealers that I deal with locally in South Florida, dealers on the west coast of Florida. And I ended up having to go online on a website that I deal with on a very frequent basis that's based in England, and they sell a lot of car parts online. And I don't know if you want me to give them their name on here. It's like an advertisement.
What if you want to?
Scuderia Car Parts. Pay Alex for a tribute if this
they
gets
did a great job.
So a very nice guy named Ash that works there. He's my sales guy. I always deal with him through WhatsApp. And I ended up sending him the VIN, and they're in England, and they're close to the factory. And he ended up actually getting me the information of where I can purchase it and how I can get it. And I ended up getting the strut done within 2 weeks. And that was all the guy wanted.
Better than 3 years.
That's all the guy wanted. All he wanted was just time frame. And it was a very hefty ticket for just one shock absorber. But I had to download a program I didn't have. So I have no need in purchasing, for example, Pagani or Koenigsegg program. I've never had one in my shop. If one was to come in and the client was willing to pay my cost on purchasing the program, that's what I mean by guinea pigging. I'm going to give it a shot. it's just a car. At the end of the day, I'm going to figure it out. It's got to run on a similar system like any other car. I'm going to go through it, take off the covers, figure it out. There might not be wiring diagrams. There might not be information on it. But there's going to be details and symptoms and things that I can find based off of codes, talking to people. You know, I've built really good relationships throughout the years with multiple of the high-end dealers here, you know, in the parts departments, the service departments. So, that McLaren was, I would say, the highest ticket item because it was a single, like, repair on one thing. It was just one strut.
Oh my, I mean, you've driven so many. I mean, I see your videos. People follow you on Instagram and stuff. But you're trying all those cars. You have to try them out, of course, to see if they're fixed or not.
Course.
With so many luxury vehicles, I mean, what are pros and cons of having a luxury vehicle?
Like ownership.
Ownership-wise, yes.
I would say is being in over your head. Like Miami, you see that a lot. Yeah, people want to live up to here with debts and live with an appearance that they probably should bring down a little bit, you know, so that they can invest some and then maybe get to that level where you can afford it with residual income, you know. That's my idea. If you've got the money, man, there's really not too much negative about it. I would say that the ownership part of being a collector and not being able to use these cars on a consistent basis would be a negative. It would be a con, because if you're not, and there's levels to money. You know that, I know that. Like, if you've got the money where you're a guy like Manny Koshman, that you can afford to have one or two guys on a daily basis moving your car so it doesn't get flat spots on the tires, and there's always being detailed, and the batteries are on a conditioner, and you don't live in a garage that you can't put your car on a charger when you're out on vacation for 2 weeks. You know, there's negatives to it, because these cars consume a lot more electricity than standard cars. So you'll notice a lot of these Ferraris, Lamborghinis, they come with tethers and conditioners to plug them up. And if you live in a building that doesn't have an outlet near you, that could be a con. Going on vacation could be a con. You got to figure out where you're going to leave your car, or you're going to get back to a dead Lamborghini or a dead Ferrari, and then you got to put your battery to charge, give it a jump, get towed, whatever. So there's a lot of cons. It all depends on your situation. And I think, at least in our current Miami atmosphere, you'll see a lot of people that are you know, making good money. Obviously, they could afford to give the down payment and they could afford to maintain the payments. But then when they get hit with a $4,000 or $5,000 bill, it's like, can we buy it used? Can we find it online? And it's like, dude, you have a Ferrari, man. You're putting me down, like, by saying that. Like, now I got to put a cheap part in your car? I don't want to do that. Like,
but you see it as a good opportunity to fix luxury cars. Miami, I think Dubai or something, I think on average has the most luxury cars in the world. Something South Beach or Miami in general. It's just there everywhere. And you know me, owning a shop, you want to step up the game. I mean, your dad started a shop like 30 years ago almost.
32 years ago.
So that's runs a family business. So rarely today seeing someone that actually continues their footsteps of their dad or whatever. Yeah. But you can actually do it. And when I met your dad, I met you. You love it. It's not, and you're improving. Your dad, I guess, you know, he worked on certain cars. But even you're a younger guy, so I guess you're better with technology, some technical issues. But your dad has the knowledge of certain stuff, so it's a good mix and match, you know. And you can keep up, and then switching from like cars like 30 years ago, just learning about the new cars every year. So many new different cars.
Yeah.
Right now we went to electrical cars also. Yeah. That thing didn't exist 30 years ago.
No, and changes. Sorry to
no.
And changes between them. Like you can still be talking about a standard, let's say Toyota Corolla, which is probably one of the more basic cars in the market, one of the best cars you can buy, because of how basic it is. They're so reliable, their engines are consistent, they use the same up until, I think recently they had the 1ZZFE from like 1995, with minor changes of variable valve train and this and that, but 1ZZFE all the way up until like 2017, 18, I think it was. And this car now has lane departure assist, active cruise control, active braking, park hold. So like you'll be in a standard Corolla and you can set up your cruise control, let go of the steering wheel. Obviously it's going to warn you and you can't let it go for too long. It's not a Tesla with autonomous driving, but you can literally let it go on a curve and it will follow the curve the whole way and actually take the curve, and if it will see the two lines on a camera that's called ADAS system. It'll have a little radar cruise in the front that'll detect if somebody got in your lane. It'll slow you down. It'll maintain the speed that you have it set to. A Corolla. So all of those functions have completely different features on the same gas car that you've known and loved for years, you know, and people have trusted and
And
depended
it's
on.
affordable.
Very affordable. And now that's an electronic rack and pinion. You can pop open the hood and try to find a power steering reservoir on these cars. There's none. So now if that car gets crashed and, or let's say you hit a curb hard enough and you damage the rack and pinion, it's not just a replacement of a rack and pinion anymore. It's now requires somebody that doesn't have to be young or old, but in the majority of the cases, it's going to be a younger guy that is going to know how to get a tablet. He's going to know how to do a steering angle sensor calibration, a 0-point relearn, you know, where you can actually force with newton meters of torque to the left, to the right, so that it gets all the readings. And then on top of that, you got to calibrate the cameras with different like depth perception and refraction sensors that will still work in the rain. They'll still work in different driving conditions, daytime, nighttime. All these functions still have to work. So all this stuff has to be calibrated. So it's not just a rack and pinion replacement on a little old Corolla like back in the day where it was a $250 part and it was a maybe $300 labor plus alignment and a little bit of fluid. No, now it's a $1,800 dealer-only part because no auto parts making electric racks yet that I know of. You've got to program it, so you got to have the tool to be able to do it, because an old scan tool won't do that anymore. A little plug-in handheld's not going to do that. And then you have to have an ADAS programmer, which is plates similar to like when you do four-wheel alignment, but these guys are all with different functions, and you have to be able to angle those radars and sensors like perfectly, and it makes everything more complicated, more expensive, with benefits, but also with its negatives.
Definitely. I mean, we have Toyota Corolla, reliable car. I remember when I was growing up, I mean, all different cars. Whoever owns a certain kind of car is, oh, this breaks down, this part breaks down, certain types of car. One of the always like urban legends about cars in Serbia was whoever buys Alfa Romeo, that in Serbia means you're just like going to see a mechanic every day. I don't know why. I mean, I've seen it here, not that much, but in Serbia, a lot of people like it because it's stylish and
they just
drives
started
good.
Coming back here now.
But it's just breaking down. Everyone's complaining. You get that one, you're like done. That's it. So what is the worst car to buy? What do people come with the most problems with certain car? Is there any, or cars in general? A couple of cars. You know,
I would probably say like sticking to like a fan favorite car. What I mean by that is like what a very large group of people would consider their favorite car or a car that they want to buy. Range Rovers. To me, they are, aside from McLaren, but like I don't want to get to a level that's much higher. This is a lot higher.
Minority people buy luxury, that kind of luxury.
Yeah,
cars.
I mean, like, you know, Range Rover is on a level where some people want to aspire to purchase a certified pre-owned, you know, 2 or 3 year old car. Range Rover, hey, I can afford it now. I want to give myself that you know, luxury. It's probably one of the most unreliable cars in the like luxury segment. I mean, every car has their flaw. I really don't like economy American cars. So American cars have always been very good at making big engines, big trucks, big cars, and they're still good at it. You look at F-150; it's the most sold truck in the market.
You can see it everywhere.
Used in every single commercial fleet and everything. They're extremely dependable. All of their models. They have their flaws. Fords still have their flaws, but when you stoop down to like the Fiesta, the Focus, the Chevy Cruze, the Sonic, that's a Japanese imitation. It's a cheap quality, because that's what Japanese people have done since the very beginning, has been small, little liters. Honda doesn't make a V8. They've never wanted to.
You don't need a V8.
They have enough power with their V6s. That's what they want to make. That's what they do. They'll make their own V8s and V10s for Formula One, but they don't make it for the civilians. They want economy with power, with reliability, dependability. And Japanese focus on that, and Americans don't. American economy cars, and I mean the cars that you can go look up right now, a Chevy Cruze, Chevy Sonic, 2017 is maybe $6,000. Go look at a 2017 Toyota Corolla and tell me how much more it is. I guarantee it's double. And there's a reason for it. Because that Corolla is going to last 250,000 miles, and then it'll give you a headache. And in between, all you're going to do is tires, brakes, oil changes, belts, filters, the regular that no car is exempt from. But American economy cars, they're a bit more problematic than they should be. They're not terrible either, and they're also not terribly expensive to fix. Like, a lot of these newer Chevy Cruzes and stuff, they're coming like with 1.4 turbos, 1.5 turbos. The turbos suffer, they leak oil, a lot of plastic vacuum, pipes and valve covers that have the PCV, crankcase ventilation on them, things like that. But every car has their flaw. And I wouldn't say that there's like the worst car in the world that you could buy. I would also put Chryslers on a very low quality of like,
People buy them a lot. I seen them a lot here.
and not just Chrysler. It's Jeep, Dodge. All of that is falls under the category of Chrysler. And another secret when you were talking about Alfa Romeo. So if you get on your phone and you look up the new Dodge Hornet, and then you get on your phone and you look up the new Alfa Romeo SUV, they're the same exact car. They have everything is exactly the same. The actual Dodge on the VIN tag on the door says made in Italy, the Dodge. So Fiat owns Ferrari, Maserati, it owns Chrysler, it owns all the manufacturers that Chrysler has, Jeep, Dodge, Ram, and all of those products are American cars. So not Alfa and not Fiat and not Maserati, but Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep are all American, but they're all interchanging with European technology and basically Fiat's technology. So you'll sit inside of like a Dodge Charger and you'll sit inside of a Maserati Levante or Quattroporte, and they got the same instrument panel, the same radio, the same window switches, the same...
Yeah, no one knows that. I remember when you showed me, I was at your shop and you showed me it was Lamborghini part
Audi,
there.
yes.
Yeah, and he showed me it's Audi actually. What was it?
It's Audi. I was actually just showing my cousin earlier today when we were there. So Volkswagen Auto Group is one of the largest manufacturers of automotives in different segments. So they own Bugatti, they own Porsche, they own Lamborghini, Audi. They've got a couple of other brands that aren't here in the United States. Aside from Bentley, they also own Bentley. They have Skoda, I think it's pronounced Seat or Seat, spelled Seat, but S-E-A-T.
Yeah.
Seat.
Well, it depends how you pronounce a different language. But yeah. It's
so those manufacturers aren't here, but Volkswagen Auto Group interchanges so many things. And like when you purchase an Audi Q8, you might not have a Lamborghini Urus itself, but if you purchase an Audi RS Q8, you own a Lamborghini Urus. It's just not badged Lamborghini Urus.
So the shell is different, the details, what's the main difference?
So the power plant is all the same, and there's other vehicles that share the same power plant. Audis, Porsches, and different other models with the 4.4 V8 twin turbo. It's literally the same engine. It'll come out on the Panamera, 4S turbo. It'll come out on the Cayenne Turbo S. It'll come out on the Audi, aside from the RSQ8, the RS7, all the RS series that are V8, 4.4, they're all Lamborghini Urus engines. It's the same exact platform. But the RSQ8 is the only car that actually shares the same everything. So like you can interchange the interior, certain things that are badged Lamborghini are not going to be interchangeable, like the airbag, the seats with, the bucket style. But the door panels are the same, all the switches, everything is the same.
You never expect that. Right now, I'm looking at those cars, so I will never even assume that's until you showed me. What was the Rolls Royce you showed me about?
Rolls Royce is also owned by BMW. So there's platforms like the Rolls Royce, the Ghost, the Dawn, and the Wraith are all the same car. They are in 3 different settings. So the Ghost is obviously a sedan, which is very large, a saloon, like what they call it. And then the Wraith is the 2-door hard top, and then the Dawn is the drop head, like what they call 2-door. So these are the 2 coupes, and then the Ghost, but they're all on the same platform. So brake pads are the same, the control arms, starter, alternator, AC compressor, AC condenser, radiator, hoses, everything is the same. And the body is what changes. The Phantom is uniquely Rolls-Royce, so it does have a lot of BMW components on it, but they're not as interchangeable to like a 7 Series BMW, where you can get, for example, the air suspension components, control arms, things like that from a 760 Li and use it towards any of the Ghost, Dawn, and Wraith. The Phantom is a little bit more exclusive. The Cullinan also does interchange a lot of parts with BMW with the X7, but it doesn't have the same platform. So an X7 doesn't come with a 12-cylinder twin turbo. The 760 Li does. So it has the same engine, the same power plant completely. But Rolls-Royce is one of those manufacturers that you would never guess. It's hand built. It's handmade.
I mean, that also not makes sense to build for. You don't sell that many Rolls Royces, so just to build a specific part
Yeah.
for that kind of car is going to be a lot of money. I don't think it's worth it for them that kind of investment.
If they're owned by another manufacturer, then they're going to share that.
But it's still a couple more times expensive, right? At least
A lot more expensive.
just,
a lot more
just
expensive.
for the details. You would
Yeah.
expect everything to be different, but it's
Well,
not.
when it comes to Rolls-Royce, I do give it a little bit more exclusivity, and I would also give Bentley too, because if you sit inside of a Rolls-Royce and you sit inside of a Bentley, you feel like you're sitting inside of a purse, and a BMW won't give you that sensation. This may be totally wrong, but I know that Rolls-Royce, and I mean, what I might be wrong is on the specifics that I'm about to say, but I know that this is a fact. Rolls-Royce has a certain cattle of cow that they raise in high north of the United Kingdom, so like North Scotland, highland area where it's usually always cold, even in the summer. It's always chilly because they don't want cows with wrinkles for the leather. They have, I think it takes like 5 or 6 cows. That's the part that you might quote me where I'm wrong. I think it takes 5 or 6 cows per car to do all the leather inside of
That's
it.
for the details, and you want to make it more fancy.
So that's what makes it, hand built. But when you think about it in a manufacturing stand of view, it isn't hand built at all. It's put together by hand in the sense that the interior is all put together by hand. But the platform, the drivetrain, the suspension, everything is all done by BMW at the manufacturing plant. It's made in BMW. It's made in the same exact place that all the 7 Series is being made. And at a certain part of the production line, it's assigned to go to England to be finished over there. And then they'll put the body, they'll put the interior and the finishing touches on it, which makes it a Rolls Royce. It isn't a BMW, but it runs on a BMW.
What's the, if you can name it, top 3 cars you ever driven? You say, okay, this is it.
It's hard. I would say there's a car that I would buy that would be my favorite, that I would look back every single day in the driveway and not only be happy that I bought that car, but I know it's reliable. I know it drives insane, and it's the best car money can buy in my experience. And it would be any 911, Porsche 911, any. It doesn't matter if it's Turbo S, 4S, Carrera S, GT3, GT2, GT3 RS, whatever it is. Any 911 is a car that you can be dressed up in, go out to a nice fancy dinner, and still be in a gentleman's car, and then go to the track the next day and put on a helmet and still compete with the Lambos and the Ferraris, and have a very reliable car that is part of the Volkswagen Auto Group, but doesn't share any platforms with any other car in the world. It's the only engine that's manufactured for that specific car to have a Boxer engine, along with like the Cayman and Boxer and other models, but that specific line of Porsche, the 911s and those H-flat 6 engines, I mean, you just can't go wrong. They're beautiful. There's cars that appeal to me aesthetically, but I would stay away from them because I know what they bring. It's like women in Miami. They might be very beautiful, but you got to keep your distance because it's going to cost you a lot of money, give you a lot of headaches. So avoid it, and you got to have knowledge and experience.
It's not all about the aesthetics.
It's not all
about
the aesthetics. It's not. And then there's cars that I would say I would recommend for reliability, budget, long term, relatively headache free, kind of cars. And if everybody had those cars, I'd be out of business.
so not a good recommendation for you.
No, I do. I want people to be headache free, but have one headache free car and one headache, so I can, I can continue having a business.
I mean, I will see so many luxury cars. I always assume, okay, they don't break down that easy, that expensive. You don't drive them that much. I mean, because you're not going to drive it every day, I assume. You're going to go to the supermarket with a lamp. I mean, people still do here.
They do.
But where are you going to put your stuff? There's not even room with some of those cars.
Yeah.
So you've driven Tesla. How's the electric cars? How do you think all that shift? You think they're better quality? I hear them a lot of breaking down a lot.
So
what do you think about it?
I've actually taken a few courses for Ford EV line. I did the Hyundai Ioniq, and 3 Tesla courses. So I have it's like an apprentice certification basically that I could start working at Tesla if I wanted to.
Is that necessary, or you just wanted to have it?
No, it's not necessary. I mean, I would guinea pig on it, but I don't know anything about it, and the only way to know is to either start working with them or watch videos or take a course like what I did, and it was 3-day courses that was through Tesla, and one of the courses was actually with 2 EV garages here in Florida. One was called Electrified Garage, and I think the other one was called Evergreen or something like that. And it's very interesting. I like it, but I think that there's a message being portrayed to electric cars as being environmentally safe and healthy, to a certain extent. But everything that's involved in creating it and everything is not environmentally friendly. I think that there was a time on Earth where if this man would have had a little bit more business knowledge and business power, I think that we would have never shifted into the combustion engine as deep and as dark as we did, and we got it.
But we're here.
We're here. So now that we're here and we have the intelligence and the know-how of how to make internal combustion engines to be emission friendly, I mean, there's been tons of people that have created hydrogen engines and hydrogen-powered vehicles, and we have renewable gases that are even extractable here in Florida, where you can burn some of that without having as much CO2. And Toyota, BMW, and I think 2 other manufacturers are building hydrogen engines right now. Toyota already made a press release and everything about it. They're doing that with Yamaha, and they're going to build a V8 for Lexus, I think it is. I might be wrong, but it's going to be to compete in the F line of like RC, that I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Lexus RCF.
I'm trying to think. I think I know. I'm not sure.
Well, so like the F Sport line could be like saying you have an M package on a BMW, or then you can have an M car. So M1, M2, M3, M4, whatever. When you have an RC 350 F Sport, you have an RC 350 3.5 liter or a 200 turbo, which is a 2.0, and you have an F line. So it has an F Sport package look to it, but it's not an F Sport. You would have an RCF. That would be your highest level, or GSF or ISF. Those are 5.0 V8s that have the same engine as the LCF. I don't know if you've seen that one.
I think I did. I think LCF.
They have the LC 500. It's another model that's a big coupe. So it's a very powerful engine, and Toyota and Yamaha are redesigning it to be hydrogen, where it's going to have the hot valley. So the exhaust is actually going to be in the middle, right in the middle of the V of the engine, and the intakes are going to be on the side. And it's going to produce, I think, over 580 horsepower, which is what car guys love. I could never give up the sound and noise and feel and drive. I don't care how much faster an electrical car is. It doesn't.
Yeah, it's strange. I mean, I personally don't like it yet. I mean, I've driven it, but it's just the feeling. I don't know. It's like I'm moving through space and I'm just not hearing it.
It's not there.
I have to hear it.
Yeah, I don't know. And what are you gonna do? I've seen these like Instagram reels and stuff where like there's a new Hyundai that has like a sound where you can even make it sound like a spaceship. Like
it's just put on the radio so you can hear it.
No.
So
they're even imitating manual transmissions and all kinds of stuff. Like it's not bad, and I'm not a scientist. I'm not a specialist in this industry. I can't say that I even know if what I'm saying is true about the creation of the EVs not being environmentally friendly. But from what I've read and heard about the lithium mining that's happening all over the world, the fact that they have to transport the lithium to where it's going to be produced, to then be produced elsewhere, to then be sent to a battery, then the battery has to come to...
There's a story behind. There's a lot.
There's a lot that goes behind the closed doors. And I think if we're in a market of fossil fuels and internal combustion engines and everybody has the resources, and what are we going to do? Just throw all those resources away and just say, no, why don't we find a better alternative to it? And
maybe they will. Who knows? I mean, this is not alternative, I think, for now, but something might change. But we'll never know what the future holds. Imagine when first time I drove like a really expensive car, and I'm like sitting inside a car. Oh my God, you've got to be careful. It's expensive. What was the first car you're like, oh my God, this is too expensive. I gotta watch out what I'm doing. Of course, you drive a lot of different cars. You have to do that because they're not your cars. But what was the first one you remember where you're like, oh my God,
I'll never forget it. I swear, I'll never forget it. It was a McLaren. It was the Mercedes, the SLR McLaren. This car was, at the time, it was a unicorn. Now, you can't even buy it. Like, forget it. Back then, it was...
what year is that?
2008, 2009. I was a mix that McLaren and Mercedes did, and they created that one with McLaren together, and it's a monster of a car. And it was the first car I had ever gotten that, like, level. Because I had already, had at the shop Range Rovers and Mercedes S-Classes and, certain...
This is another level.
This was like, now it's considered in the hypercar level, not even supercar. Now it is, but back then it wasn't considered. I don't think people appreciated it as much as they do now, especially like with the Lexus LFA. Those are $1 million now. If you could find one, they're 900, $1 million plus. And people didn't appreciate them maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And the SLR, that car, I just remember I had this urge to push it. And I was like, oh my God, this is my first ever supercar. Like, I'm driving this, and I stepped on it, and that car just went, whoa! And oh my God, I came back pale. My dad knew I had done something wrong. My dad knew it. I was like 17 at the time, and I came back, and I like left the key. He's like, what did you do? What happened? What happened? I was like, Dad, I drove that SLR McLaren, and I pushed it. I think it's so fast. Like, I freaked out. And I'll never forget it. Like, as soon as you asked me, I was like, I know exactly
that moments, those
I know exactly which car it was. Like,
so, I mean, your dad opened up a shop 30 years ago, so he started, you told me the backstory of it. And well, how was it for you? I mean, he's from Cuba originally, you're born here to Cuban, third generation American here. Yeah. And growing up growing up as an immigrant in the United States in general, yeah, and having your dad start a shop, he's been struggling, I assume, for so many years to get a hold of things. Starting his own business, that's a huge thing. Not a lot of people make it at that level and continue to do something for 30 years successfully. It's still there and it's doing great. And then, walk me through your did you thought you're gonna continue doing that all your life?
Honestly, no. It was always part of my life. So the shop, being that my dad started it only, I think, 2 years after getting married with my mom, and they had my sister the first year of marriage. So they had already had one young baby. My mom was pregnant with me, and he started the business off of a very generous act of the previous owner, the original owner of our original location. My dad used to work very close here to your house, right by the Bremen dealer across the street. There's a Midas there, and my dad started there, and my dad's always had a good charisma and always a good attitude, and the guy was going shopping for possible tenants to take over his shop, and he was coming with a generous offer. And the guy was basically fishing. He went to shops and he would ask, like, oh, if somebody could check his brakes, that they were making noise, and he would see like how that person treated them. And depending on if he liked the guy, he was gonna offer, like, hey, would you want to start a shop? I have a place like right over here, and I'm gonna give you a good offer. Come look at it and like tell me what you think. And my dad treated him nice, and he offered my dad, like, hey, would you want to come and see the shop? And, I grew up there, and I can imagine what it looked like, because that shop was never the ideal shop. And if you've been to shops like you have all around Miami, and now our new shop is much better, but if you've been to shops, this was a very open air, very exposed shop. Cars would get dirty very fast. And it wasn't in the greatest area at the time. Now it's Wynwood, but it was always Alapato my whole life, and now it's Wynwood. But it was never the greatest area. Very commercial on one side, very low-income housing in the other, and not the best area to be in. And at the time that they started the shop, there was also a lot of issues happening in the city. Miami, 30 years ago plus, wasn't as safe and as fancy and nice as it is now. It's always been popular in the beach and things like that, but the inner city of Miami was always a little tougher than the touristic side. And they started there. My mom was always side by side with my dad, and she couldn't be home to take care of us, so we had to be at the shop from being babies. Once we started going to school, it was straight after school to the shop, Thanksgiving break, summer break, winter break, all the holidays, any day off was always at the shop. And I didn't think I was going to do this, but I only knew the medical side of stuff because of my heart issue. And that's kind of like the only two things I've ever known my whole life. And I never knew which path I would want to go. I would love to be a race car driver. I would love to, have like every kid's dream to be an NFL player or something, but I don't have the height for certain sports. I don't know if you noticed. But I grew up with this. This was everything that I knew my dad knew. I knew about cars my whole life. I've always loved cars. It's always been my thing.
Well, you're not a race car driver, but you still drive really nice cars.
Yeah.
It has to make you happy. I mean,
yeah, it does.
You do it all the time. And I see you. It's not, you can't hide it. You're genuinely happy when you're posting a lot of videos when you fix the car. Also, I don't want to forget to mention that, what I like the most. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of mechanics because I've been with you for years, but when you're posting stuff, I mean, you fix the car and whatever, brakes, brake pads, let's say whatever I fix, you post a video. how are you fixing it? What is it? The parts, we're changing this while the guys are doing it.
Yeah.
And then how you trying out the car, how this sounds. I mean, I don't know, is that popular? How do you got an idea to do that? I think that's amazing.
I I just started doing it. I always think that like it was so much easier to explain it because people don't understand about cars, women and men alike. I know many men, and this isn't like a gender specific thing. There's women that know much more about cars because their dad, since they were little girls, have had their daughter there with them, like learn about this with me, and they've made sure to show their daughters how to check their oil, what it is, what's this, what's that, how to look for certain things. And I feel like educating the customer in person has always worked for me so much because I can tell you one thing and you trust me. You, Alex, have trusted me blindly always. But some people come in for their first time. Some people don't know if they can trust a mechanic. They've been lied to by five different shops.
They make they ruin all the future because you can't get
and
it.
I know this. And I've known this since I was a kid. Like, nobody wants to come to my shop. I'm not a shop that you come into like, hey, Jonathan, like I came in for my, weekly $600 expense.
It's
now.
not a beauty salon. People go get it look more beautiful. They just have a problem they need to fix.
Exactly. They come frustrated. The tow truck took forever. Their husband blamed it on them. The wife is
stranded
upset.
on a highway for like an hour or two.
They don't have the money right now. Like, this is the wrong time. Like, we're about to go on a trip or the kids are about to start school. I can't be without my car. I need it tomorrow. And there's nothing good about what I do. So I have to make it the best. There is. And there's a lot of rewarding to it. I'm going to tell you that for sure. There's a lot of reward that comes to you from not only fixing a problem, which is a challenge, because that is super rewarding. Like, to dedicate the time to something and actually figure it out and say, wow, I figured this out. Like, now I know this for the next car. Like, there's sometimes that like I'll undercharge a job. Not on purpose. I had no idea the amount of work I was going to get into. And this has happened to me with McLarens and certain stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, I only told this guy $1,500. And this is going to take like 3 days to do. And then I think about it. I'm like, well, this is my education. This is my university right here. I'm not losing money. I'm going to be able to pay my tech. Maybe I make $300 at the end of it, which isn't money when you break it down in a whole day work or 2 days worth of work. But you say, now I know. Now that's not only am I going to charge it right the next time, but I know who to give it to, and I know how it's going to get done. And if I have to give it to another tech, I know how to tell them how to do it.
It's going to be faster. You're not going to even lose that much time.
It's going to be much faster, and I can charge more now. And I know this knowledge, and I know that I'm much cheaper than the dealer. And that situation specifically has happened to me in different occasions, but it's my education, And it's very rewarding to figure something out and to say, I'm going to get into this no matter what. And I'm gonna get to the bottom of this issue, and I'm gonna figure it out, and nothing's gonna stop me unless, like, obviously it's gonna be like I have to buy $20,000 equipment or something for one job now that I have. Okay, no, like, look, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to take it to the dealer or someone else that might have that equipment. But aside from being very rewarding, it's very rewarding to tell people the truth and to be the relief for them, because educating them in person shows them that what I'm saying is visual. You can visualize it. You can actually see that my brake pads are worn. Like, I compare it to when my dog has been at the vet and they've called me like about, he has a little rash in between his leg, and he might be chafing a little bit, but that could be some kind of a yeast infection or some kind of a skin topical infection. Like, would you like us to do a test and this and that? And I was just like, no, he's itchy. Like, that's not a big deal. Like, forget it. You're just trying to charge me. But if they send you a video and they like zoom in and they show you that, like, look, there's a little spore or whatever, you might be more inclined to like, you know what? Okay, yeah, it's $150. Like, let's find out. Hopefully, it's nothing serious. But if you're there with me, or if I send you a video and I'm telling you you should consider doing your front brakes, and I'm sending you a video with like a little brake pad that shows you how it wears.
Yeah, and guys are doing it so you can actually see. It's not like you have to believe it. Yeah. You can say, I replaced your engine. Here you go with the tag.
Exactly.
I mean, you're like, I don't know. What did you do?
Yeah.
So this, you actually show them.
Yeah.
Show
what's
us.
involved? What's involved?
I even like learning about. If you like learning about cars, you're gonna see. I see all the videos you're posting, so I always go through the stories and stuff. You can. Oh, look at this. This is a Lambo getting fixed. This is inside. I was like, oh my God, this looks like this. I didn't even know a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a learning curve. So let's say someone wants to open up a business, or they're good with cars. They like cars. They want to start a mechanic shop. Would you suggest someone to do it? And what's the advice, or what things you learned that you can actually tell it to someone else who is aspiring to be like you, or someone to like be good, to do the things that I like, not become Jonathan, but to be themselves
Yeah.
and do their business properly.
I think first I was very lucky to have been born and very blessed that I have that position, that my father was able to start a shop, and that I grew up with this, and that I've loved it, and that I've morphed into it, and it's been my life where I've been full time at it for over 15 years now. Every single day has been my main focus, has been cars and figuring stuff out and dealing with people and everything. And I would say that in any business, especially like cars, it's not just about knowing about them and liking cars. You also need to have that hands-on experience fixing them too, because you can be business minded and you could have a love and passion for cars and be very knowledgeable on how an alternator works and how the engine works and how things happen, but you won't be reasonable with your employees on realistic time frames, difficulties. There's things that happen that can't be calculated by a labor guide. There's things that happen that can't be calculated by experience. And it comes down to something as simple as a broken bolt. Like, your labor guide could say this job is going to take 3.2 hours. And you always got to give yourself a little margin for more time, because you have to lift the car up, take the wheels off, actually get started. They talk about when it says R&R time is like literally from the second that you had the tool there ready to like the time it should take for you to finish. So you always calculate the mechanic's going to take an hour more than that, whatever. But a broken bolt's not factored into any calculation, and that's nobody's fault. It's not the mechanic's fault. That could be rust. That could be, debris over tightening from the last place that worked on it. And if you've never worked on a car yourself, or you've never had that experience, and you just want to start a business, you're going to be very unrealistic with certain things. And like, explaining that to a customer is really important, because that talking part of the business to the people is very important, because they have no idea what you're talking about. And it's very easy to run a shop if all you do is brakes and oil changes and like minor air filters and stuff. But if you're getting into actual checkups, diagnosis, there's always going to be a small margin of error where this gave me this code, I followed this procedure, I read on Mitchell Pro Demand, all data, whatever site and program and platform you use. You do as much investigating homework as you can. Experience plays a part on that. And you might have made a mistake. You might have actually said, "Oh, I thought it was your ignition coil, but it's actually your injector."
It's
or
not perfect science.
Nobody's a rocket scientist, but that's where being the business owner comes into saying, I acknowledge my error. I'm not going to charge him for that, but I'm going to explain to him that what we needed to do was this, and it's not lying. That's the most important thing. This is one industry that every industry should be clear as water, but at least most people have a basic knowledge of a lot of things. Like, you have basic knowledge of your body. If he tells you that your liver is messed up and they ask you, have you been doing something wrong? Yeah, I've been drinking every day, like, obviously, or I've been drinking pills every day, or I drink alcohol when I've been drinking my, high blood pressure medicine. You have a reason why that happens, or it's a genetic thing, or you have a fatty liver, or you have at least you have an understanding of your lungs, your organs, your heart, your veins, a doctor explains it to you, and you kind of get a picture of it. You've seen so many models of it. You learned it in school. Most people know about different industries, computers, cell phones. Circuit boards are very similar. So once you know about a circuit board, to a certain extent, you could build your own computer. And people do it. You can make, different devices, sound equipment, all kinds of stuff with a circuit board. And cars is just an industry that encompasses so many different technologies, so many different things inside of it. And there's just so much involved in cars that nobody's been educated about even the most basic, simple car functions, and they're only getting more and more and more and more advanced. And, it's a field where transparency and honesty is what gives you longevity in the business.
Especially a lot of people, I remember back in Serbia, let's say people fix Volkswagens or fix Fords, a couple of cars. when I say, I'm like, how are you fixing everything? Whatever. I think someone brings a 18-wheeler or whatever. You're gonna be like,
No, no, no.
no, I'm saying bring it in. I'll figure it out. You know,
We'll get
and
there.
you do figure it out, which is some amazing. I mean, I see you running around the shop. You're busy. Sometimes I want to just say hi. I mean, I don't mind hanging out. So hang out for like 30 minutes, not because you're just working, trying out cars.
Yeah.
You got to do running around.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gets difficult. People want to quit. You're like, I don't want to do this. This is too much. What are you had those thoughts? Definitely, like, okay, I don't want to do this. I hate it. But how do you overcome that difficulties? And you say, okay, actually, after you're like, okay, I want to do this. It's actually good. How do you go from there?
I think positive thinking. I have a lot of appreciation for my family and for what I have. The money can't buy, because and we were talking about this just before the show, that my ultimate dream would be to have my own enclosed warehouse, and my ultimate dream would be to purchase a nice big piece of real estate, get into a huge amount of debt, put these beautiful lights in, paint the whole place gorgeous, put this LASIK floor, have a huge operation. But I have something money can't buy. I have my family together, which we unfortunately lost my grandfather recently, but I can say that I'm very blessed and lucky that I spent so much time side by side with such a special man like he was, because he wasn't just my grandfather. He was also a friend, and he was a character. Everybody knew him. Everybody that came to the shop always knew Grandpa and would talk to him, and he was always a hardworking guy. So I'm lucky that I had him. I'm lucky that I have my dad and my mom, and we have a good relationship. My wife works with me, and we alternate with trips, because that's my other biggest passion is travel.
I was going to say, we were going to talk about that definitely. You had a certain health issue. So I discussed that with you earlier. And people don't appreciate life until they have something bad happen to them.
Yeah.
And you see, okay, life, what's the point?
Yeah.
You're close to like not being here on this planet anymore.
Yeah.
It makes you rethink a lot of stuff. So what I noticed, it was hard to meet up with you. You were busy. We were not working. When you're working all the time, when you're not working, weekend off, you're flying somewhere. You're going somewhere.
Yeah.
So you and your wife fly all over the world. Some adventures. So tell me about your adventures. What was the I don't know, Alaska where you went? That was amazing. See the lights. I told you I was there, so I told you it's gonna be great.
Beautiful. I love it. I can't pinpoint my favorite place that I've ever been to, but I can tell you like favorite moments and favorite things that I like about every place. But the world is just so big and beautiful, and like, when you really try to analyze like the amount of places that I want to visit, and I think about how much time and obviously money and I can't be away from the business for an extremely long amount of time. Like it's so impressive to think like, will I have enough time to travel everywhere I want to visit? Like, will I have the health and stamina and fitness and be able to? Because that's another thing. I've been on trips that, like, I tell my dad, he just turned 56 today, by the way, October 1st.
Happy birthday to that.
Yeah, and I tell him, Dad, you're not going to be able to do this when you're 70. You're not going to be able to go to Tanzania and be in the middle of the Serengeti in a safari.
There's time for everything.
Yeah, but you got to do it before your body's going to be aching. Because my body at 28 and 29, when we've been to Africa, it hurts, like, to wake up early at 5 a.m. to go see the lions, and then you're riding in the truck and like trying to not fall over and trying to hold on to yourself. So there's a lot of adventures and things that you got to do when you're young and able to. And I was actually talking about that with my cousins last night too, that I attribute a lot of my adventurousness and am I willing to not be afraid to work on cars and do things, because like we only have right now. This is the youngest I'll ever be is today.
That's for sure, yeah.
Today. Like, this is the
That's
youngest.
a good thing to think about.
Today is the youngest I'll ever be.
That.
And my mind won't be as sharp as it will in 20 years, and I have to use your head, your mind, every single like faculty that you have to the fullest. Like, I feel like you have to really get out there and feel adrenaline, feel the rush of whitewater rafting down a rapid, and like mountain biking, riding a four-wheeler, flying a Cessna, riding a jet ski. Like,
that's experiences. The adrenaline and stuff. You become a race driver, but there is ways. That's not the only thing. It's like, okay, I didn't make it. That was not my dream, but there's a lot of other stuff you can do. No. So let's talk about dreams. What's the American dream for you? How do you perceive it?
Time freedom. So for me, money is unlimited. There's no number that will ever make you happy to accomplish getting to. So like, when you accumulate miles on airlines, like, yeah, you could be like, I want 100,000 miles, but in reality, you want as many miles as you can get. Same thing with money. When you get to 5 million, you're going to get used to a certain level of life and certain amount of things and stuff that you enjoy that you're going to want to accumulate more, because you're going to see that you don't actually have that much. There's a guy with a yacht that just landed in a helicopter. Like, oh, whoa,
Never
like,
ends.
and that's another like 5 levels
Never
ahead
ends.
of you. So it never ends. I think that's not the American dream. It's not mansions. It's not working until you're 70 and retiring. I think it's being able to do what you want and really enjoy your life. Like, I think that's the American dream, and that's the whole purpose of this country, is for you to get here, work hard, but also put your money to work. That's why there's the loopholes that exist in the tax system. They're not illegal. They're not gray market. They're there for a reason. If your money sits in the bank account, you're going to pay tax for it. But if you put it to work, you're creating jobs, you're creating revenue, you're creating streams, money flows. And in this country, you don't want to keep the money. You want to have assets. You want to have things that produce money for you. So I think it's to make enough so that you can have the time to do the things you love. Like, I love to do what I do for work, but I also am married to my wife that enjoys working with me. She's not passionate about cars, and I don't expect her to be. She's very helpful and very hardworking and amazing and responsible, and I couldn't do the shop without her. And she enjoys being there, but I couldn't say that she would enjoy as much as me being in there till 8 o'clock at night sometimes, trying to figure out a headache, So if you like what you do, that is a plus, and that is part of the American dream, because for me, I'm not really, like, I'm at home when the shop is closed and I'm trying to figure something out. It's my shop. Like, I don't feel like I'm at work anymore. I wash my face. Sometimes I have a change of shirt. I have a little snack to eat in the back and take a minute. There's no phones ringing. There's nobody coming in. And I'm like, I want to figure out this issue so that tomorrow I'm not going to get caught up all day and try to get to this, So I'm comfortable at the shop, but if you're able to have a certain level of financial freedom, and that's different to everybody. If you want to have a collection of Rolexes and, good suits and good shoes and a nice house and vacations multiple times a year and all that stuff, you're going to need to make a certain amount of money to afford that lifestyle. But if you've gotten to that level, and even less of a level, if you don't mind that, having all the material stuff, and you are okay in living in a camper van and traveling in the United States, I want to do that. Like, I love camper vans and camping around. Like, I follow this family that they live in a converted school bus that's a house, and they've gone to 40 national parks, and they work remotely from home. They make enough money.
That's their version of their dream.
That's their American dream. They have the time to do what they want to do. Their kids are homeschooled with them all day. They're in the mountains. They're looking at animals. Like, that's the life. The kids are living the life. The parents are living the life. What do they need a mansion for if they don't want to be home?
You have to figure out what's your dream. That's the
Exactly.
whole point. Everyone
Yeah.
has something different.
Yeah.
Before we wrap it up, we got something we missed. You want to say something else?
I do want to say that keep your mind open to that the grass is always greener, or our perception of the grass on the other side seems to be greener. Because although I would like to be a race car driver, I have something that probably a race car driver would envy, which is I'm my own boss and I have my own family as the only other people that I would have to respond to or to consult before I make a certain decision, because it's our family business, but I run the show. And a race car driver has pressure. He has to win. And if he hit the car, like, you don't think he's going to get back in there and get drilled and like,
You will.
Of course, these are millions of dollars. He just lost the race. Why'd you make that decision? How much training have you been through? And like, so he might actually look at the grass on the other side and be like, man, you know what? Like, I wish I would have just, stuck to what I wanted to be, a mechanic, or own my own mechanic shop, So I also understand that part. Like, I did, in my teenage years and early 20s, enjoy a lot of, like, I wouldn't say professional, but like semi-professional competitive racing, for certain events and things like that. And you put your own money to get in there, and you could possibly win something if you win the event. And I had fun that way, but I could imagine that it's very stressful also to look at someone else's position and say, damn, I wish I had what he has. I wish I had that job, or I wish I, was a CEO, or I was the big boss, or
That's a dangerous spot to be. You don't know how that is. You just perceive it's gonna be amazing. Maybe it's not for you, but you gotta focus on your own dream.
yeah,
Gotta
live your reality, and if you have a possibility of making your reality into something that you would really enjoy, let's say you like to travel, apply to be a tour guide in another country. You're an English speaking person. You know what I mean? What other language can you learn? Like, I tell people all the time, if you have a passion of something, move to a beautiful country and for a year and be a tour guide, and
I always like that quote: "Be yourself. Everyone else is taken."
that's true.
So
That's true.
I mean, we'll tell people where they can find you and follow you. With the Instagram, with your shop and your travel. Instagram.
So for the travel, it would be my last name, Naranjo Adventures, on Instagram. That's the tag, at Naranjo Adventures. And then for the shop, it's at M as in Mike, B as in boy, C as in Charlie, Napa Auto Care Center. So like Napa, like the auto parts, NAPA. And that's on Instagram. We're actually working on a website where we're going to put up videos and things like that. So time.
Time. That's all we were missing.
Yeah.
Time. All right, my brother. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, man.
It was so I enjoyed this.
I did too. I had a really good time. I talked a lot. My throat is sore already.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you, brother.
Thanks
everyone
brother.
for watching. Please like and subscribe.